And welcome to another edition of Rosen Sports Monday here on Talk North Sports on the now snowy Monday in the Twin Cities. I want to thank our sponsors, Stretch Lab, locations throughout the Twin Cities. Can't wait to go for my appointment tomorrow morning. And our good friend Charlie Swanson, Lexus of Wayzata, Lexus of Maplewood. And we will hear from our sponsors a little bit later in the show. My guest today is the one and only Jim Souhan, man of all seasons, and talking about all seasons, including our winter season, because you said you just got stuck in a little bit of traffic coming out here.
Coming out on 394, which is different than my experience last week when my wife and I swam with reef sharks and sea turtles in the Caribbean.
Come on. Now you're killing us.
I'm dead serious. I've already used the line, but I'll use it again. I used this line on the Viking Update show, so I apologize for repeating.
No, that's all right.
I swam with reef sharks. I snorkeled with reef sharks. They're coming up with like about a foot from me, so I know what Max Brosmer felt like.
You know, I don't know why word association hits me. We probably, the name doesn't mean a lot to the youngsters out there, but swimming with the sharks, I think of Harvey McKay.
Yep.
And I'm getting off topic because I'm trying to avoid talking about the Vikings as long as possible. Harvey McKay was a man for all seasons. He had his hands in everything in the Twin City area. For those of you who are too young, I mean, he was involved with the university sports. He got involved with all the professional sports, mover, shaker, close personal friend of Sid Hartman for a while. But I don't know if those guys, do they exist anymore? I mean,
I think they exist. I think they exist. I just think that the millionaire who used to dabble in like local college athletics is now a billionaire who tries to run the entire world.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm thinking of Harvey in this day and age of nil and everything, name, image, likeness. He would have been one of those guys, probably asking a lot of his close personal friends to dig in their pockets in our Fortune 500 companies to go support, He may have been really valuable he really knew how to push.
He might have done that very well.
Yeah, he could have, but he was an interesting character, wasn't he?
I was on a jet once, yes.
Yes, this is true. All right, I've avoided it as long as possible. You know, I have nightmares still about covering the 1984 3-13 Minnesota Vikings coached by Les Steckel. And I did the Les Steckel show every Sunday night of that season live, okay? And I call a lot of things about that season, starting with training camp and the Ironman contest. But he would always come up to us or talk about on the show. They'd be 1-4, whatever they'd be. And whatever opposing coach they just lost to would come up to him and goes, you know, Coach Steckel, I got to tell you, this is the toughest, best 1-4 team I've ever faced in my life. And then just keep adding on 1-5, 1-6, 2-7, 3. And eventually they won 3 games. And I thought I had seen it all that year. Then this year's happened with the Minnesota Vikings. And when expectations in 1984 were bleak, I mean, they were really bad. They had poor Archie Manning was even one of the quarterbacks for the Vikings in 1984. And they played the Chicago Bears, who went on with that historic season in 85, winning the Super Bowl. And I was covering the game at Soldier Field, and Archie was getting the piss knocked out of him by all those great, Richard Dent and Hampton and all those guys on the Bears. And they had a lot of respect for Archie. They were telling Archie, just lay down.
Yeah.
We don't want to hurt you. that was kind of the way it went. So you kind of felt like this is where we are now with this football team. Seen a lot. Not quite sure. I saw what we saw yesterday again when you get beat 26-0 when getting a first down has been difficult for this team for weeks now, Jim. No matter who the quarterback is. It's not Brosmer. It's J.J. McCarthy.
We've gone very quickly from worrying about what might happen during this season to worrying about what's going to happen over the next few years.
Yeah.
Because they've gone from it was always an odd match. An old, highly paid veteran team, roster built to win now, pumping money into veteran free agency, trading for veteran players, including Adam Thielen, and trying to bring along a young quarterback. And I know I gave Kevin O'Connell the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I gave J.J. McCarthy the benefit of the doubt, and I was one of the many who were wrong. This did not work out well. And frankly, it hasn't worked out in either realm. The older players haven't been good enough. The expensive players haven't been good enough. The draft has been terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And J.J. McCarthy was not ready to help that group compete. And Max Brosmer, frankly, this is what I've been trying to tell people all year. This should have been expected. Like J.J. McCarthy, it was a surprise that he wasn't better.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody should have been surprised by what happened on Sunday. Max Brosmer has played 1 year of major college football. 1 year. He's never faced anything like he was going to face in Seattle. He still might be a good backup quarterback in the NFL. He might end up getting a chance to start someplace down the road, but he had no chance yesterday.
Yeah, that's like asking someone to step in for Al Pacino in his prime or something and walk on and take over his role in some major motion picture and just nail every line. And people think that they're watching Pacino. It's not going to happen.
Nope.
But let's just, I'm going to pump the brakes just a little bit because we said we had breaking news, which happened today. Adam Thielen is no longer a Minnesota Viking. The Vikings released a statement because he was a healthy scratch, as we like to call it, yesterday. Kevin O'Connell was the one who made that decision, but apparently his representation asked the Vikings to release him so he could catch on with another team these last 4 or 5 weeks, whatever the case may be. But the Vikings, correct me if I'm wrong, did they not give up a fourth and a fifth to bring Adam Thielen in because they were hurting the wide receiver department because Addison was sitting out the 3 games for the suspension? Wow. That's all I can say is I didn't see this coming. Not that he's been playing a lot.
Of course, they've drafted so badly the 4th and 5th it has no value at all.
Well,
they weren't going to take good players.
Well, that's true.
But to be serious about it, it is fascinating because Kwesi in 2024, they nailed all their veteran free agent moves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Darnold was great. Grenard was great. Van Ginkel was great. Cashman was great, et cetera, et cetera. Everything they did worked. This year, nothing has worked. And because nothing has worked, they've lost the ability to cover up all the draft failures.
Yeah.
And Thielen, I have a hard time being too hard on them on the Thielen deal because you have McCarthy starting the season, the lack of depth at receiver. You're trying to get off a fast start. Everybody still had optimism. This could be a really good year at that time. And at that point, you needed receiving depth. So this one, it looks terrible now. I understand why they did it. It's the problem is it compounds all their other mistakes because it takes away draft choices from a team that desperately needs to start drafting well.
Yeah, and I go back to training camp. I remember J.J. McCarthy, of course, now healthy at that point, throwing passes to Addison. They're connecting left and right. They look like they got a good tandem going, but they always knew that Addison was going to miss the first 3 games of the season. Justin Jefferson, meanwhile, sitting out with a hamstring injury. They got Jalen Naylor, and they're thinking, well, they got to get some other help in here because they were lacking depth. And as it turns out, Thielen was, it turned out to be on a pretty good Carolina team. I don't know if Carolina wants to take him back, but I don't know who's going to pick him up at the same time. He just really barely made, he caught one pass, a couple passes here and there, and that was really about it.
Yes. I'm trying to think who would make sense for him. Who really needs, I don't think he's a number 2 receiver anymore, but who needs receiving help is the Steelers.
Yeah. They need a lot. Yeah.
They have a number 1 and they have a couple tight ends they like, and they have no number 2, 3 receivers.
Well, the Wolves are out here, certainly. I read enough social media. I stayed off of it last night because there's nothing to add at that point. But most people, fans are fans, and we understand that. And we appreciate everybody's,
passion
and, fire Kwesi, fire KOC, you mentioned Pittsburgh, the Steelers, of all people. They haven't had Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. The Wolves are out in Pittsburgh right now. Aaron Rodgers is throwing teammates under the bus again, shockingly. They're not following.
Who could have seen that coming?
I know, but the Pittsburgh Steelers of all teams right now are getting their share of stuff. But we've seen enough in the NFL to know this is such a fluid situation. The Washington Commanders, who come to town next Sunday, and what will probably result in a few empty seats. Last time I looked, they were in the NFC Championship game last year, were they not? And they look like a team that was going to really be on the rise. Jaden Daniels obviously has been hurt a little bit, but that's not the only reason why they're not being the same team. The Lions may not make the playoffs this year. They still got a struggle ahead of them after being so close to a Super Bowl, and losing their two coordinators. Things happen, but patience is thin when you're a Vikings fan, and understandably so, because people have been waiting decades to have that kind of breakthrough. They have not made this will be the 16th straight season they failed to put together 2 straight playoff years.
Mm-hmm.
That's astonishing.
Yeah, it is, and it's bad. Let's face it, it's bad, and it's funny because we always hear about what great owners the Wolves are, and because they did this and they did this, and listen, they've made themselves a lot of money. They've built a lot of nice things. They have nice toys. But they hired Kwesi, and Kwesi, his drafting is a problem. It just is. I know there are people high up in the Vikings organization who are very dismayed by the fact that the drafts haven't gone well, because they know that you cannot sustain winning with just veteran free agents. Eventually, you have to have some of your own players for affordability, for youth. It's hard to be an old NFL team. It really is. This is a dire situation for these reasons. The general manager hasn't proven he can draft. They really have to give J.J. McCarthy every chance to develop, which means you're going to have to sacrifice time here. You can't there's no magic new guy to bring in to erase that problem. They have to develop McCarthy, which might mean a terrible end of the season. It might mean uncertainty going into next year. And their 2 best players on the roster, Justin Jefferson and Christian Darrisaw. Justin Jefferson didn't talk to the media for the first time ever after a game in which he was healthy yesterday, which is his way of saying, I'm not going to talk because I can't be honest about what's going on here without, blowing up the situation. And then Darrisaw, there's still a lot of smoke around that fire. He just continually, will he play this week? Will he not play this week? Does he trust the Vikings? Is he so injured he can't play, or is it that he just doesn't want to play through an injury because he doesn't trust the way the Vikings have handled him? There's a lot of bad stuff going on right here. And it wasn't that long ago that you, me, and everybody else is saying, man, organization's doing a pretty good job. But in the NFL, quarterback play and close games, those are the things, right? Last year, the Commanders got great quarterback play from a healthy Jaden Daniels, and they won all their close games.
And these turnovers are killing them.
And this year, it's not happening.
Not happening.
And turnovers are what get you in close games.
Yeah, exactly. And yet, Jim, this quarterback quandary obviously is going to trail on this entire offseason into next year. J.J. McCarthy will be here. He's the guy they're going to count on to be their starting quarterback. And looking at the number of reps, the number of starts, whatever it might happen at the end of this year, probably obviously the pressure's off. They play some winnable games on paper, but how do you see this thing developing? I've been scratching my head thinking, what veteran quarterback are they going to have to bring in next year? They can't go into camp next year with J.J. McCarthy and Max Brosmer and some other guy that's just filling a roster. Can they? I mean, I don't see them doing
I think
that.
what they need is they need like a Marcus Mariota type backup. They need somebody who isn't going to be trying to beat J.J. McCarthy out on a daily basis, but who, if you need him to play, can function. And that's what they need. Really, the only way players who might be available if you wanted to bring in a starting caliber player would be Daniel Jones, who, by the way, hasn't played well for a month.
No, he has not.
Or trade for like a Mac Jones. But that doesn't really change the arc of the franchise. Neither of those guys are going to win you a Super Bowl. And I think they need a veteran backup who can help with McCarthy's development, because, and here, this has been my pet peeve about quarterback analysis all year. I'll bring it up here again. You watch ESPN, you listen to the best, or at least the most prominent NFL analysts, and they'll do 2 segments in a row. They'll do one segment and say, boy, look at this. Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones. These guys are all proof that all these organizations just didn't handle their young quarterback the right way. And then the next time they'll be like, oh, they can't play J.J. McCarthy. What?
I know you can't.
What? That's exactly why they need to take care with J.J. McCarthy. He has shown good things. Okay. It's not nothing that he's led comeback victories on the road in difficult places to play against
Detroit
division opponents. And look at how good that Chicago win looks now. Chicago has the best record in the NFL. One of their losses is J.J. McCarthy destroying them in the fourth quarter in Soldier Field. So McCarthy's done good things. He has arm strength. He has athletic ability. He has guts. He's won. He has bad footwork. He doesn't handle pocket. It doesn't handle the pocket correctly. He needs help reading defenses like a lot of young quarterbacks, and he needs to learn how to throw varied balls, varied trajectory, varied speed, touch passes. But there's something there, and they would be foolish to give up on him and try to go get the next.
Well, they have to ride it out. And they had Carson Wentz, who was filling that role that you described until he got hurt.
And Carson was a good guy when he was healthy here.
Right.
Maybe he's your backup. I don't know.
Yeah. But KOC staked his claim to him. I know they tried to move up and get Drake May. That was never going to work because New England saw something in him which has led them to have, I think, the best record maybe in the AFC. I think right now they weren't going to get him. But do you think that KOC looked at McCarthy and said, I know he's at Michigan. He didn't have to throw the ball very much. We know the whole history. That he can turn into a really, a Brock Purdy type of guy, or if not more, with this Viking team. But you can't wait a long time for these quarterbacks to develop. Now, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You got to win. You got to win now almost. And look at Bo Nix with Denver right now.
I will offer one counterpoint. The Packers did let Jordan Love sit there for a long time before they played him. I don't think that's ideal, and I do think this was the year McCarthy had to play. It obviously didn't go well, but I think you got to stay with him. I also think, talking about KOC evaluating JJ, the interesting thing about Kevin O'Connell is his strength and his weakness, like a lot of people, his strength and his weakness are kind of the same. His strength is he's a very gifted offensive coach and play caller and play designer. His weakness is he thinks of himself as really good at those things, and sometimes it's an arrogance that allows him to make mistakes. And how about 4th and 1 for the Vikings? Max Brosmer, we don't know if Max is going to complete a pass all day. You're 4th and 1. You're still in the game. You don't kick the field goal. You don't run the ball. You try Max Brosmer rolling out, trying to make a play. What is that? That's KOC always thinking he has a play design that's going to work, right? And that's why he doesn't run the ball more. It's why he doesn't stick with the run more. It's why some of his quarterbacks can't function, because he wants to run an intricate passing offense, and he's going to have to dumb things down for J.J. McCarthy and just give him a baseline of success before he starts throwing all this other stuff at him.
Yeah, we're watching a game. You mentioned Marcus Mariota. I watched him last night and going, they're making it look easy, and everything is a damn struggle for this Vikings offense. And this isn't. I'm going back to the second game when they played Atlanta here, and Atlanta ran the ball down their throats, and the Vikings couldn't counter. That was a sign of really what we've seen all year long, with a couple of exceptions. Like you said, they had a nice game in Detroit where they were able to put some points on the board. The defense played real well. They harassed Goff, and much the way the defense harassed Sam Darnold yesterday, they had the blueprint to make Sam Darnold look like he did against the Rams in the playoff game last year. Rattled, unsure of where he was going to throw the ball, just looking over his shoulder. That was something to see, and I'm sure other teams have taken notice of what they're doing and how they're going to attack Seattle in the postseason if they get in.
For all the chatter about Darnold and Jones, I don't think either of them is going to win anything. Would you have won a couple more regular season games this year? Yes. Would they have taken this team anywhere? No, the team's not good enough. Again, everything we talk about to me brings back to point A.
Mm-hmm.
They have to develop McCarthy.
Right.
And they have no choice but to invest fully in that, whatever it takes.
Getting to the draft, we never know what happens in the so-called war room draft night or leading up to it. I know that for many, many years before he retired, Scott Studwell was the director of scouting, and you got a lot of hands in the pie when you're scouting all these college players that neither really Kwesi and or KOC, of course, has time to look at. But when push comes to shove, they're in that room that night. You would think that KOC would have a little more say, at least in that combination of like, well, I think we should take this defensive back from Georgia. And KOC's going, yeah, well, I'd like this running back from LSU, whatever the case may be. And that his word, since he's the head coach, might carry a little bit more weight to say, people going, Crazy hasn't drafted anyone. Well, I don't know what happens in that room, but I think, Kwesi listens to his people, and ultimately, I guess it's his call. He's a GM.
I don't know exactly what happened in there any more than anybody else on the outside. I'll say this. It was obvious that Kevin O'Connell wanted Jordan Addison, and he got him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kwesi wanted a defensive player there. KOC, nope,
Right.
For my offense to work, I need another receiver.
Yep.
I think that was KOC's pick. I think McCarthy was KOC's pick. What's interesting is that when Kwesi went over to KOC to tell him that he had moved up to get Dallas Turner, KOC was very surprised. At the time, I think everybody interpreted, oh, happy surprised. Maybe not. Maybe it wasn't happy surprise. Maybe it was like, what are we doing trading up to get a guy who's not that flex? You know, I mean, listen, Dallas Turner's had a better month. He's better than he was. I still don't see enough. I still don't see a star, but you know, you also could have had Jared Verse or Quinyon Mitchell with that pick.
Well, if you look at the NFC North, not just the rest of this year, but you look at the surprising Chicago Bears. Again, the Vikings were, as it turned out, even though they got it completely outplayed here at US Bank, they were 50 seconds away from winning that game, pulling it out.
They almost swept the Bears.
They almost swept the Bears. Wasn't for a special teams breakdown, they may have won that football game and swept them. They got the Lions again a second time around. They got Green Bay a second time around. You know, do you see a team, anyone kind of dominating? It looked like the Lions were going to be that team. They had everything in their favor, and now they lose their coordinators, and now they're struggling to make the playoffs. So, to me, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a dominant team in the NFC North. Probably there's not a dominant team in the entire league anymore now that the Chiefs have fallen off, and you know the AFC is a complete wild card shootout right now. That the team's going to represent them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the league is wide open right now. The NFC is wide open. The division's wide open.
That's what makes it so frustrating.
And this would have been a good year to be good.
Yeah, it would have been.
The Vikings weren't. And again, if they could have swept the Bears, it's not even worth going with the couldas because they're not good enough. But you know, again, McCarthy almost won that game. You know, I mean, there's enough good that a good coach should be able to get him to at least be a solid middle of the pack quarterback. You want more, of course, but you got to at least have that.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because the quarterback's always the number one topic in town when it comes to a sports team. And the Vikings had not had a true franchise type quarterback. I don't know, since Fran, I guess, maybe. I mean, Culpepper was here for a while.
Culpepper had a nice run, but you know, it wasn't long enough, successful enough to really get excited about.
And that's why you think about, you mentioned Jordan Love. You look at the Packers with Favre and Rodgers and now Jordan Love. They've had three basically starting quarterbacks for decades now. That's just astonishing. And that's going to continue on.
Philosophical question here. Would you rather, well, it's an easy answer. The easy answer is, of course, you'd rather be the Packer fan who had 2 Super Bowls, but who's underachieved more? The Packers winning 2 Super Bowls with 2 of the greatest quarterbacks who ever lived and a very good young quarterback, or the Vikings winning 0 Super Bowls while never having a franchise quarterback.
Oh man, that's a good one. That's a good water cooler conversation to be had because, you know, every time that you think about the Vikings kind of reaching, and then when Brett Favre rolled into town in 2009, I mean, Randall Cunningham took over from an injured Brad Johnson in 98 and should have won that game. We know the reasons for that. But it shows you can also kind of rent a quarterback and maybe get one of those guys and strike when the iron's hot. But you got to have a great team around you. And right now the Vikings are not a great team. And it's, you know, I don't know if Brian Flores is going to be here next year. He's not under contract next season. That's going to be interesting to see how that develops.
Think that if there's any benefit to being a bad team this year is that nobody's going to hire Brian Flores under these circumstances.
No, this is true. So, well, the Vikings in Washington move on next Sunday at US Bank Stadium. They'll be playing it out. I mean, Washington is very disappointed in their own results this year. A couple more other games the Vikings have at home leading up to the end of the year when they play the Green Bay Packers. So fans will still have a good time. Hopefully they can and just take a deep breath and hope that things will be better on the other side here. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk Wild, Wolves, Gophers, Twins, you know, and see where we are with all that. But first, want to hear from our sponsors, Stretch Lab, and my friend, first of all, Charlie Swanson over at Lexus of Wayzata, Lexus of Maplewood. Yes, it is Lexus December to Remember time. It's here. It is the very best time of year to purchase a new Lexus and it's not even close. And keep in mind, it doesn't matter which side of the town you're on, because they have locations in Wayzata and Maplewood. Too many incentives to even list right now. So there's a reason why they call it a December to remember. It's a great time to go see Charlie Swanson or his great staff. December to remember ends, you guessed it, at the end of December. So see the inventory at Lexus of Wayzata or lexusofmaplewood.com. Hey, Mark Rosen here for Stretch Lab. I had my introductory first stretch when I was visiting my relatives in New Jersey. I went to the local Stretch Lab there for my 50-minute session. I felt so good afterwards. And when I came back, I immediately called that Stretch Lab in Eden Prairie. They have locations all over the Twin Cities where my nephew first signed up. I've been hooked ever since. There are locations I mentioned throughout the Twin City area, but I stuck with my Tuesday morning appointment with Jason to get my 50-minute stretch in as part of my schedule. It's like a meditation session. He stretches out my legs, my hips, my back, my neck, my traps, all of it, and I take some deep breaths, and I feel like a new man every single time I leave. My nephew's in his late 20s. I'm a little bit older, but it doesn't matter. Stretching is so important in our daily routine. Having an expert do the work is the only way to go. My advice, give Stretch Lab a chance to improve your overall health. Check out a location near you. And welcome back to Rosen Sports Monday with Jim Souhan. Now that we've got all the Vikings problems solved, let's move on to a couple teams that are playing pretty well right now. The one that packed the I guess I got to remember to call it Grand Casino Arena over the weekend. On Friday afternoon, they beat the number one team in the NHL right now, the Colorado Avalanche, in a shootout. The Wild are hot. The goaltending duo of the kid, the Wallstedt, and the Gus Bus, Kaprizov, Boldy, they started off so horribly. You're thinking, man, Bill Guerin's not going to pull a rabbit out of a hat. But, Jimmy, they're playing well right now.
It's almost bizarre. I mean, they played so bad early on, and Gustafsson was so bad, and they looked like they couldn't score, and they looked like they had no secondary scoring. The defense actually, the defense should be the strength of this team. The defense was terrible early on. I have no explanation. Hockey's a weird sport. Our friend Patrick Rosie, one thing he always says is, if you're gonna play to 100, the better team's gonna have a pretty good chance of winning. You play to 3. All kinds of weird stuff can happen, right? One bad bouncing puck can change the entire game. And kind of a correlation of that is when you get good defense and goaltending, you score 3 goals, somebody's a hero. If you're playing bad defensively, you score 3 goals and you're getting blown out. And just the fact that I think Wallstedt turned the season around. Wallstedt playing brilliantly when it looked like they were going to have to fire everybody and start over. That just turn the season on its head. I have no explanation for why they're this good, though, because they've basically been the best team in the NHL for a month now. That's crazy. And you look at the standings. If you ever look at the standings, I mean, look at the divisions, if you can even name them, they're so bunched up. They look like, like a NASCAR race coming around the first turn. Every car is bunched up. Every team is bunched up within 3 points. That's because of the system, the overtime system. The stupid system.
It is, and everybody gets a point. Everybody gets a trophy.
A point every day. You practice, you get a point.
That's pretty much. But it just shows you that you have to really bide your time, try to stay as healthy as possible, and obviously play your best hockey next April. And that's where ultimately this Wild team, like every other team in the NHL, will be judged. The Wild, like pretty much all the Minnesota sports teams, at least the Wolves have made it to the Western Conference Finals, but they haven't got past the first round in a very long time. And that's really ultimately how this team's going to be judged. They haven't won a playoff series since early in the Parise Suter experiment. That's crazy. And they have to go win a playoff series at some point. It's ridiculous. And, of course, Vikings haven't won one since 2019 either, by the way. This does look like a team that could be dangerous in the playoffs. If you have good goaltending, if you have veteran defenders and quality defenders, and you have Kaprizov, and of course we're going to talk about Kaprizov and goaltending. Those are the obvious things. They have gotten a lot out of their third and fourth lines, and they've actually developed a checking line that's really effective, which is never the first thing you talk about when you talk about why an NHL team's winning. But that's really made them hard to play against. They have a fiercely loyal fan base that shows up all the time. They will continue to do so. And I think now the fans are excited, and rightfully so, because every time they go to the rink, they expect to see a win. After how they played against Colorado in particular, that team is loaded with superstars. Meanwhile, across town, the Timberwolves finally beat a couple teams with winning records. Still a flawed team, I think. I don't know how you feel about it, but they showed. I mean, I thought last night, fourth quarter against San Antonio minus Wemby, may have played their best 6 minutes of the season.
Yes, and with Gobert off the court, which is really interesting. It just did the John Krasinski show today, and he was talking about the fact that people get so upset with Gobert because he's not a natural offensive player. He pointed out that like Gobert's like number 2 in the league in whatever rating whatever rating system you want that develops overall effectiveness. Gobert is a very valuable player. I just think, to be realistic about it, the Wolves never start fast. They always spend the regular season figuring stuff out. And then sometime in February or March, they start figuring it out. And then they're really tough down the stretch. And I don't know why this year would be any different. They're trying to figure out how Anthony Edwards can be their lead guard, which is kind of the modern Luka Doncic, James Harden. You're the point guard, but you're also going to score more than anybody else position. It's a hard position to play, but it can be very effective. And they're trying to figure out exactly what to do with rotation, and they're trying to figure out what to do with playing combinations. It's still they didn't enter the season like OKC knowing exactly what everybody's role is. They're playing around with it. They're going to have some bad weeks because of it. They're still going to be good in the spring.
We just spent a lot of time talking about Kwesi, the GM from the Minnesota Vikings. Tim Connolly's a guy that doesn't necessarily want to sit on his hands. He's always working behind the scenes. And the conventional wisdom would be the Wolves would want to trade for a legit kind of point guard, not necessarily a John Morant, who's a hot mess right now, but maybe someone who can help him with 3-point shooting, maybe ball handling a little bit, although, Dante DiVincenzo's taken over a lot of that. I'm wondering what you feel the chances are they're going to try to make a trade before the deadline to bring another guard in here to kind of whatever they can do to inch closer to what the machine, the Oklahoma City Thunder are. That's their goal. That's every team's goal in the West.
I don't know that I see him make. Let me put it this way. I think they really are invested in this. I think they think Anthony Edwards can be a ball dominant, all around superstar who gets his own, creates for teammates, makes you incredibly hard to guard. Also gives you size on your. If your point guard's Anthony Edwards, you're a big team. And if Anthony Edwards can continue to improve defensively, he gives you a lockdown guy in the perimeter to go with all your other defenders. I think they're invested in that. I don't think they trade for a point guard unless that experiment fails. I don't think I think the odds are against them making a big trade. Here's the caveat. If a superstar became available and Tim Connolly thought, I'm better with a superstar next to Anthony Edwards and than I am having a deep, cohesive team, he'll make the deal. I'm just not sure that's going to be feasible. I mean, could you go get Giannis? Could you go get, how much would you have to give up? Could you give up enough draft capital, given all the deals they've already made, to not have to blow up your entire roster? I just don't, honestly, I don't see a major deal happening this year. I think it's going to be more about cohesiveness and helping Edwards adapt to this role. And
it's hard to see this team. You got to try to take that quantum leap, but the West is loaded. I mentioned, of course, OKC, they're the lost once this year. And, the Lakers look like they're back. Denver looks really good. Houston looks really good. So the competition speaks for itself. You got to do everything you can to try to, move the needle a little bit with the limitations you have with salaries and et cetera, for the Wolves to be back in the Western Conference Finals. It's going to take a lot of heavy lifting.
It will, but I think they're good enough.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the West is I think last couple of years we said, oh my God, the West is like 10 deep. There's going to be great teams in the play-in. I think this year it's different. I think it's top heavy. I think there are like 6 good teams and a real drop off after that. So I don't think getting a top 6 seed, which is kind of the minimum requirement, is going to be a problem. The question is, can they get higher than that? And do they even care? Because they already proven the last couple of years that home court advantage doesn't mean that much and seeding doesn't mean that much.
Okay, last topic before we go, we could talk about you mentioned Gopher football, unbeaten at home against teams that didn't have great records, but they won at home. Nothing wrong with that. On their way to a bowl game, we got the Big Ten championship game we've been waiting for. Indiana against Ohio State.
Yes,
coming up. Indiana, the team that everyone wishes the Gophers would be.
Yeah.
A lot of them would be. I don't know. They've done it with I'm sure a lot of nil money, et cetera, but kudos to them. They have a shot at, I don't know if they have a shot at Ohio State. I guess they do. They're playing awfully well, but it's fun to watch.
I think Indiana has a shot. Listen, if I had to bet my own money, I'd bet on Ohio State because it's safe. But Indiana's really good and
entertaining.
And yeah, I just don't want to rule them out. I think that'll be quite a game, frankly.
Yeah, and if you look at the coaching carousel, that's just the way it works in college sports with the Kiffin situation and.
Well, I knew Monty really well.
Wasn't he something else? What
Monty
a charmer.
Monty was a beauty. I still remember I covered Monty was like a linebackers coach in like 91 under Jerry Burns or 90 or 91.
Right.
He called me and took me out to lunch after the season. And I'm like, Monty, this is great. I appreciate the time. I always talked to him off the side and all that stuff. And I said, but what's the occasion? He said, you could have ripped my ass a lot this year and you didn't. So I just wanted to buy you lunch.
He was amazing to talk to. What a great personality. Hell of a football coach. I'm glad he ended up with the Tony Dungy's staff.
Yes.
At Tampa Bay as well. Rest his soul.
He had a lot to do with the Bucs winning the Super Bowl.
He sure did. Well, next time we chat, we'll probably talk about spring training, getting ready for the Twins and see how all the additions they've added. Talk about the young players that we're going to have to get used to watching because that's all they got. Jim, thanks so much for spending some time. I'm glad you got here all right through the traffic and appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thanks. You've been listening to Rosen's Sports Monday.